Good morning, good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to a rather wet clay pigeon down in Dorset. Although it wouldn't stay wet all day, which was good for me because the pace on the Saturday was pretty good in the dry, and as you're about to see, the wet conditions made it very, very tricky. But here we are for heat number 1. This was my mid-start for the day, so towards the middle of the grid and on the better side for the start in terms of a long right-hander, but we get ushered wide. See there, trying to really control that steering wheel as the cart's behind, getting in too hard and effectively pushing us wide. But it's not the end of the world. We didn't drop too many places. We actually tuck in behind Anwar, who we know is very, very quick indeed. So if we can try and keep on his bumper and follow him through as he makes moves, that'll be the goal. So he goes up the inside through the hairpin. Outside, a bit more grip in the wet, as you can see there. Kart goes around the outside of us, so maybe you should have had a little bit of an experiment and gone a bit deeper there. But grip up there and the kart on the inside, I don't think was expecting the line from there for myself, so a little bit of contact, but very little grip going on the inside, and trying to get it slowed down alongside there is going to be the best of moves unless you're right alongside the kart. So we've managed to sort of stabilise going into this stage of the race into lap 2, and we're seeing if we can follow Anwar as he goes around the outside. Before the kink, we managed to get around the outside during the kink, which can always be a little bit risky, because obviously the kart on the inside could drift wide and push you wide as well, but it didn't happen this time. Missed the curve on the first part of the chicane there, which affected our run going through. As you can see there, Anwar getting better traction coming off as well, but managed to gain some of that time back going into the hairpin, but anything carried in on the way in seems to be lost on the way out as well. So very tricky conditions here at clay pigeon, trying to find where the best grip was to then maximise the momentum round and off the corner. As you see Anwar looking for that move up ahead, managed to make it work. Let's compromise the kart in front, and it gives me a chance to see if I can capitalise as well. So going down the straight, not as windy today as it was on the Saturday. The headwind going down this main straight on the Saturday was mega, and the slipstream really did have a big effect. Still had an effect today, but not as much. But keeping it tight, really important, going through Billy's blind and then the sweeping right-hander after before the chicane. Able to put it up the inside going in, and that's another position gained. So gaps starting to appear between some of the karts. So whilst they're all nice and close, or as they're closer at the moment, it'll be more important to try and get through. So you gain a little bit of time again going to that hairpin, which is good for us, keeps us closer to Anwar. See if we can see if we can capitalise on any moves that he makes through the kink here before the penultimate corner. He gets a slightly better run, gets the kart rotated better than I did, and able to get a slightly better drive off. So just not quite maximising my driving at the moment. There's definitely areas where it could be improved. To see Anwar there making a much different line through that first kink on the straight, but in doing so he makes the move and it allows just enough of a deficit to myself so I can get up the inside before the chicane as well and follow him through. And we skip forward a few laps now. You can see there's been a few overtaking manoeuvres where I haven't been able to follow through. That's allowed Anwar to get a couple of extra spaces ahead on the road. Kart in front goes a little bit wide, slides a bit too much on the exit, and that allows me to pull up alongside. Going down this isn't straight towards Billy's blind, down into the first corner. Getting that turn in, trying to keep it tight if possible. You can see there, keeping it tight. The car on the outside who allowed it to drift coming out just loses momentum. But through the chicane, I lost my own momentum, and that allows the driver there to go around on our side, but slightly more confident on the brakes going into the hairpin here, and with a little bit of attack coming up the inside, but getting better traction. That secures us up into 5th place. And that's where this race would pretty much settle down and finish. Didn't quite have enough time to catch up on the guys in 4th and 3rd. There's only 1 or 2 more laps after this, and the deficit speed wasn't quite big enough. So that jumps us forward onto heat number 2, where it'll be my back start, starting 10th and on the outside of the grid here. And the rain has been coming down more since heat 1, so even more slippery, even more treacherous, more people in wetsuits, and a more challenging race is on the cards for sure. As you can see, very close going through turn 1, and end up being stuck on the outside going through the chicane, which isn't ideal. although we are left some good racing room there on the outside, which allows us to get through relatively unscathed. So a few positions lost there going through the first couple of corners, and going through the first hairpin, you can see there again Callum Sigafus takes advantage of the slightly better outer line where there were less people, maybe a bit more grip, and it's at this point where I start getting bullied, if it's if I'm honest, then it's not something I normally find myself at the receiving end of. Not that I do the bullying, but normally sort of robust enough and aware enough to know that I'm not just going to get assaulted from all angles. But it's kind of what happened here, and I think it was partly down to not really getting into a particularly good rhythm off the start, and sort of having that sense of going backwards, which wasn't ideal, and also just not the most amount of confidence in the wet conditions, which is frustrating, because the wet is normally a condition where I feel pretty confident and something that I think I'm pretty good at, but not in this race for sure. As we try taking the position back at the inside, but get squeezed a little bit and end up making some contact. So stay to the outside and sort of give that position up going into the next corner. Have a look at trying to maybe cut it back on the inside and aiming for this curve here, because that can help pull you around, keep you a bit more towards the left, and allow you to get a slightly better run through. We saw Anwar taking that line in the first race, and the track conditions caused a little bit of a slide into the side of the driver in front, and that both hurt his momentum and mine going to that last corner. We end up having to tuck in behind. So we skip forward a little bit again going into this first corner, just not as confident on the way in, and end up having the driver throw it at the inside, and we have to leave space, try to get a bit of a cut back and stay close going through the chicane. But you can see wasn't able to stay as close, but get a slightly better run going down towards the horseshoe. Stuck on the outside though, and have a think about going around the outside, but the driver on the inside there sort of cuts it off by going a bit deeper, forces us to the outside going down towards the next couple of left-handers. Have a think about cutting it back, trying to get to that inside curve first, but not quite able to. A little bit of contact. Have a think about trying to cut it back, and it wasn't quite there. But yeah, it was just, this wasn't just the race that I wanted it to be. Unfortunately, got Murray Adams there of Club100 and BUKC BPEC iRacing fame, and have a think about trying to go around the outside through the kink towards Billy's blind, but not happening that time. Maybe have a look at cutting it back, but wasn't able to get the kart slowed down enough to keep it really tight on the way inside, but do get a good second phase of that acceleration zone. Managed to go side by side through the chicane. Have a little think about then cutting it back towards the outside, going down towards the horseshoe hairpin, get a better drive and use that outside line. You see Murray there trying to keep it tight on the inside, but wasn't able to keep the momentum as we were, and that move around the outside gets us up into P10 and a disappointing Heat 2. Luckily, Heat 3 we're starting further towards the front, and the track is now dry. So it looked like it was threatening to rain, which is why you might see some people stood in wetsuits, but the track itself was now dry, and we've got Callum Sigafus in front, who we know can be quick, and we would be very happy to follow through as he goes hard round the outside into Billy's blind, keeps on momentum and just sweeps it in lovely into the chicane there, taking the lead of the race. Unfortunately, we had plenty of people on the inside going into that chicane, so we weren't able to take such an aggressive line in, and that drops us from P4 on the grid down into P5 or 6, and it leaves us with a lot to do to try and get back into a podium position for this heat, hopefully going for the win, because the pace felt good in this one, and see here going down in towards the hairpin, horseshoe hairpin, able to get on the brakes slightly better. Driver in front left space, wasn't able to make the apex, we were, and that's up into P4 now in this heat. As we skip forward a little bit, have a look if we can make another move, because we come down in towards Billy Blind. Alex Pritchard there, who's had a good start, able to make that move that we've been making, and a lot of people have been making on this weekend, through into the chicane. Have a little think about seeing maybe going around the outside, but didn't quite have the drive, and think better of it, tuck it in behind the driver in front and live to fight another day. But they go straight for the move back on Alex, which slows them both down, and if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick Alex, and not just because he had the better line going through this section, but in terms of moving forwards, experienced driver, and and someone who can say, you know what, let's not let Callan get out too far in front of us as we engage anime speed. Going down towards Billy's blind. He gets that nice tight line. Has a think about going at the inside of Callan, but not quite up alongside enough. Goes to let him back through. Callan's momentum's hurt. It all goes a bit wrong. Kurt Holmes takes the outside there and just thinks, sod it, I'm going to just keep the momentum as high as I possibly can and maybe it'll work out. I ended up getting caught in the middle and lost out probably the most out of everybody. Dropped back into 6th place for a moment. Round the outside, going the kink into towards the penultimate corner. Alex managed to get himself up into P2, but we'd have a penalty coming. And that's us into P5 going back across the start-finish line. So from P3 down to P5, had an opportunity maybe to get up into the lead of the race as Kurt Holmes did. But we're able to get up alongside into the chicane, take that position back and up to P4 behind Callan now. And we'll see if we can push him along for a little bit, so we can catch up with Alex and Kurt. But he ended up going a bit slower than I thought going through the final corner. I got into the back of him, sort of pushed him wide, so I wanted to let him back through there, and ended up on the inside going to Billy's blind, which meant I could defend from the driver behind me as well and not lose a position. So didn't want to take it by forcing Callan wide there, and we'll have a little think about when this move can be made. I felt better going through that final corner, and I think Callan was losing a little bit of time there, so if it was going to happen, that's where I was thinking it might happen, is on the exit coming out the final corner. So as we come in towards it again, gets a little bit sideways again. Does Callan, we're able to keep it slightly tighter, go alongside, but that little bit of contact on the way out meant that our momentum was hurt, and Callan then gets the bump draft from the kart behind. So I have to try and keep it tight going in towards Billy's blind. They swoop wide, which is not the best for ultimate speed around that sector of the course, and managed to keep P4. But all this time, Kurt and Alex are getting further and further away. Bump drafting Callan down the main straight, but disengaged before the braking zone, so we don't force him wide. But he goes wide himself, and this time able to go up the inside going in towards the chicane. That's up into P3. P2 effectively, because as we said, Alex has got the forcing a driver wide penalty, I think it was, for the move on Callan earlier in the race, and that would be a P2 finish. Not enough time to catch up with Alex or Kurt in that one. So that puts us 19th on the A final grid. So still the A final, which is good, but much further down than I would have been hoping to be. But it is now nice and dry, and during the 4-minute warm-up, the kart felt good. So in terms of the prospects for this race, I was feeling really, really positive, and we were on the inside going in towards turn 1. We knew it was going to get busy, and luckily we don't have too many people behind us that could put us at risk. But look at this, 4 wide going in towards the chicane. 4 into 1 does not go, so we've got someone exiting stage left there. We managed to tuck up the inside as Adam Nather gets a bit tangled with a couple of other karts, and they run wide going through the chicane. And yeah, the conditions are far sight from earlier on in the race. We've now got a perfectly dry track, and opportunities galore for overtaking in terms of options for lines and things like that. But have a think about going around the outside, but the momentum of the karts in front wasn't really hurt enough to make that work. We can see here we've got Adam Nather and a whole train of karts up on the inside of us. We just have to take our medicine and see if we can push Callan Sigafus down the straight and maybe get out in front going through Billy's blind, but it's not going to happen. We get stuck on the outside, 3 wide for a moment, but managed to capitalise there and carry a bit more momentum. Adam Nather gets through, and we have to have a bit of a rethink. We've got good pace, but we need to use it better than I am at the moment. As we come up onto the main straight again, we've got Adam Nather in front, who we are quite happy to follow. We know he's quick, and have a little bit of a bump draft. He's put himself in a good position to have the move going into Billy's blind, and we end up getting 3 positions in one corner, as all 3 karts on the outside aren't able to make the most of the available grip and go a bit too wide, allowing us to have better momentum, keeping it tight in that sector of the track. 2 more drivers getting a bit tangled, giving us some free positions, and all this is good for me, and it's good for Adam as well, because it means we are losing 0 time whilst gaining positions. As we cross the line up onto lap 4, again Adam has a look, keeping it tight as we come through Billy's blind. I'm close enough to be able to follow him through, and that's another position gained with very little work had to be done. Adam's momentum hurt at this point, and he waves us through, noticing, I think, that had quite good pace, and he's happy to follow me just as I was happy to follow him. And had to have a little think, did Adam, going into that corner. The drivers behind were pretty close. Could have had a little bit of a throw up the inside, but at this point we're catching up with Steve Lindley, and that's Steve Lindley and Steve Bolton in a bit of a gap, so I want to try and make these moves as quickly as possible. Steve knows we're there now, and he's a little bit slow going through the hairpin, allows me to get on the inside, and then I get caught out a little bit here. Steve ends up really slowing it down more than I thought he would do. I think potentially just really trying to keep it tight on the exit to avoid me getting up the inside of him, but sort of caught me out, bumped him through a little bit clumsy. But we are able to get up the inside through, but he's blind. But potentially here, Steve may be feeling like he didn't have the kart to fight with the entire time, so he's holding on to the position in front of him, and then what should have been well into the top 10 finish in this one, we end up last, 26th at this point in the race. 5 laps in, not long to go. Let's have a bit of a look. So we're alongside Steve going through the chicane, which slows our momentum and allows Adam to get up the inside of us, or outside of us rather, and then coming in, just as we go to brake, he starts moving towards the right hand side, looking to make the move on Steve, but we're still there. That gets us all tangled up, and with him keeping that trajectory towards the inside of the corner, it just takes our nose off and spins us round, and really frustrating. He did send us a message. I ended up leaving the menu as quickly as possible after this because I was really frustrated, but he did send us a message afterwards and apologised, and it was nice to have, because I feel like he acknowledged it wasn't really on, and I think he had the same mentality as me, being that we wanted to try and push on as quickly as possible, and that was an opportunity to push on, but it wasn't whilst we were still on the inside. So whilst it's frustrating, and it's what could have been some really good damage limitation, this is going to end up probably being a drop round for the championship. And it means that we've now had Buckmore Park and Clay Pigeon, where we kind of had some really poor scores in the final, which doesn't leave us a lot of opportunity for the rest of the year to have some poor scores. So a bit more pressure for the rest of the year, but it did allow for a bit of a recovery drive here. Still got some overtaking moves that we can make as we finally catch up a few laps later with a group in front. You can see here the benefit of Club 100 is there's normally a lot of people to fight with, and there's a big long train of karts here that if my momentum can sort of keep going as it has been, can make a lot of moves very quickly, as Dower Low keeps it alongside, a little bit like Steve did. We're ushered wide there going over the curve, and felt a little bit hard done by there, but able to get he was going to move on Darrell, up behind Pepe now. In a kart that we know is quick. We've had that kart earlier and we felt confident in it, so it's one that we know felt good in a straight line. Will be trickier to pass, even though Club 100 karts are pretty close together. It's not often that you get karts that you don't feel like you can do something in. You just have to drive around, slightly different characteristics of them. But here we can see Pepe just sort of starts drifting a bit more wide. We had really good pickup going through Billy's blind and able to throw it up the inside going into chicane. We've got a big gap now that we need to try and break down as we move forward onto this lap, and this will be my fastest lap of the race. And again, looking back at this afterwards, this was frustrating because this lap in clear air ended up only being 2/10 off what the leaders were doing, with the benefit of cooperation and tow. So pace-wise, had every bit of the opportunity to potentially get a top 5 out of this race from starting 19th, I think, and that makes it all the more frustrating. But you can see we've caught up with the group in front reasonably well over the course of that lap. We'd crossed the line, put in a 41.5. The best lap of the day would end up being 41.3. And as you can see here, keeping it nice and tight again through Billy's blind, throwing it up the inside of the chicane, given the racing room, and that's us up, getting closer back towards our starting position, which which, if all else fails, getting back to where you started at least isn't the end of the world. We've got Miguel Hall here, who's having a little bit of a tough final. We know Miguel can be quick, as can Hassan in front of us. Let's try to follow Mo through as we go through the kink, going into the last corner. Being stuck on the outside there, not ideal, but in the dry, able to keep it nice and tight to the cart in front of you and not worry about sliding out too much as we go down towards him. He's blind and get ushered on again, a little bit like we were in the second heat, just nudged on, hence why the racing driver hand of frustration came out. And see that little shake of the head, and frustration coming out, not just for the little nudge there from Turnbull, but just in general the way the race was going. It was frustrating. Towards the tail end of the race now, just trying to maximise any last few positions that we can get. And whilst Clay Pigeon is definitely a track where you can overtake, it's knowing where to do it so that you don't lose too much time. As you can see here, managed to get a good bit of momentum coming out of the last corner on Mo, put it to the outside, and then going down into Billy's blind. Just keep it alongside, try and make a block pass. Mo does a good job of sort of breaking slightly earlier to potentially see if he can cut back, but I was able to slow it down enough to keep it tight, stop that move from happening, and getting the eyes back and forward, see if we can catch up with Miguel and Pepe as they battle into the last few laps of the race. And you see now Miguel really getting defensive, which is helping us catch back up, because obviously as you start defending, the lap time starts disappearing, and at this stage there's not many more positions that we're going to be able to get, so it's just a case of maximising every single one that we can find to try and make this bad score one that could potentially still help us later in the year if it has to be taken. But you can see going into the chicane, everyone's staying nice and tight, nice and close. I don't get a particularly good run here, which is frustrating, because it would have meant that I'd been right on Pepe's bumper going into this corner, but Miguel gets it wrong, keeps it tight going into the corner, but ends up out-braking himself, locking the rears, and ushers himself wide, and that puts both myself and Pepe and a few others behind up a position or two as we come around the final corner to finish 18th in the end, with Kurt coming home with the win, Adam Wright in second, Anwar manages to get Adam White across the line to finish. Joe comes home in third, with Adam dropping down to fourth, and then Mikey Nichols in fifth. But yeah, it was a tough end to the weekend in what felt initially like it was going to be a really positive final. Didn't quite come away with what I wanted, but that's the way that racing goes sometimes, and hopefully next time out at Rissington can make amends and see if we can get back to getting our top 5 finishes. But thanks very much for watching. As always, I hope you've enjoyed, and until next time, have a good one.